This is Q1 2022 earnings call summary for Merck. They beat on both revenue and profit. The stock price moved something like 2% since they reported. Of course, because of the current downtrend in the market, they've, of course, uh, moved down with everyone else. But the price did get up to about $89. It's currently right around 88, but that's coming from almost what $75 back in December. So, well, March too. So it's done fairly well. I don't know um, what that means for Pfizer because Pfizer has definitely been the COVID winner in the space. But Merck most recently has done really well as far as price action is concerned. The numbers that they put up this quarter are just crazy. And I haven't looked at any of their peers. Like I said, I haven't looked at Pfizer. I haven't looked at any of the other biotechs to see if their numbers are the same. But the numbers are just crazy. So we're going to go through some of their core medicines that they're selling right now. Keytruda being the biggest and the most influential and important is all about cancer. And so they are using Keytruda in all types of different cancers. I have to think that it's working fairly well. They will lose their license to Keytruda, I believe, in 2025. I may be wrong about that, but that licensing is soon ending. What that will mean for the stock, I'm not sure. Whether or not them losing Keytruda has already been priced in, I'm not sure. But once it's gone, it's gone. They'll still be able to sell Keytruda, but other companies will be able to duplicate the medicine and sell it as an off brand, which is usually cheaper than the name brand. And so we do expect them to basically start to lose money on Keytruda at some point. And I'm sorry, I don't mean lose money, but they'll make less money on Keytruda at some point. But as you can see here, just over the last 3 years, they have done really well with increasing um, the, the number of, or rather the revenue for Keytruda. Let's go down the list here. All right, Limparza, I don't know a whole lot about, but as you can see, 3 years, 86%, 51%, 20%. Again, just crazy numbers. Lenvima is another one. And again, this is all about cancer. And you can see the numbers there, 73%, um, down 1%. That had everything to do with COVID, I'm sure. And then up 77% for the first quarter of 22. Gardasil, which is a very interesting subject. I try to bring it up in all the bar conversations that I possibly can because Gardasil is uh, the vaccine for the HPV virus, which is a very serious thing. I think that I remember there was some famous actor, I forget who, that basically got throat cancer because of HPV. It went untreated for so long that it developed into cancer. And it's one of those things that doesn't get discussed, right? I mean, someone is performing oral sex with someone who has HPV. They may not know they have HPV, and the next thing you know, you have HPV. So uh, Merck is really pushing hard to get the message out there to get persons vaccinated against HPV. I remember when I went into college back in maybe 2008, 2009, I was told that I had just missed the um, requirement to um, to get the HPV vaccine. And so that just goes back to not only marketing, but also government lobbying, right? If you can lobby the government to get requirements for students and persons to be vaccinated against HPV, that bodes well for Merck, right? Merck is um, optimistic about Gardasil. They think that they will continue to push this vaccine, and they think that more people will want it. Currently, they say that something like only 9% of those eligible to receive Gardasil have actually gotten the vaccine. And so there's a huge market for it. But again, it's all about marketing, and honestly, I remember seeing a TV commercial about HPV maybe years ago. I don't see it much anymore. And anytime I bring up the subject, it's not something that people know a lot about. I have met some people that do know what HPV is, but again, it's just not something that's talked about. But it is a very serious thing, and so Merck is in a really great position to do something about that. I want them to definitely market more and maybe even use some scare tactics that I see in so many other commercials concerning HPV. But we'll see where that goes. Um, it is sort of an ethical thing, right? Where you don't necessarily want to use scare tactics to sell a medicine, but at the same time, you want to make persons aware that this disease is out there and there is a way to stop it. It's so interesting. We just came out of this COVID pandemic, and there was a big push, to get persons vaccinated, but not the same sort of push for the human papilloma virus. All right, here's another one. Honestly, I don't know a lot about these. I'm sure I've covered some of them or all of them in previous videos. I've covered Merck now for the better part of a year. But as you can see, again, numbers 19%, 11%, 20%. So again, just crazy numbers. They're really taking care of business in that regard. Animal health is another very interesting side of the business for Merck. You can see the numbers there, up 21%, 15%, and 9%. Again, that's over 3 years. So, growing steadily. They're doing their job and they're getting the medicines out, and obviously their salespeople are doing their job and making these available to doctors and hospitals. I think that's it for the medicines. Want to talk a little bit about another one that I think is really interesting, and that is the Vaxnuvance. Vaxnuvance is a vaccine against the pneumococcal vaccine, the pneumococcal disease. Now, I'm trying to remember pneumonia. That's what it is, pneumonia. The fact that we have a vaccine for pneumonia blows my mind. My mom told me for years how she was so scared when I was a child, baby actually, that I was diagnosed with double pneumonia. I've known adults that have come down with pneumonia, and it's a simple bacteria that's been around for a very long time, and now we have a vaccine for it. They are still under review, so we don't have an official okay yet to get this into the systems of the babies, but it is something that is available for adults. And so, again, it comes down to marketing and it comes down to um, making people aware that pneumonia is real. We all know the name, right? We know what pneumonia is, but how many know that there's a vaccine for it? And the thing is that it's no different than I go back to the COVID vaccine, right? If we are all vaccinated against pneumonia, we can actually possibly get rid of it altogether. And so, again, Merck is in a really great position to really push this message forward and really get these medicines out to the population so that we're all better for it. One thing I wanted to talk about too that was really kind of funny in the call was concerning the COVID-19 drug that they have. Now, I forget the name of it. Starts with an L, but anyway, they developed this drug alongside all the other biotech companies that were trying to figure out this COVID thing. And instead of a vaccine, they decided to come up with an antiviral, meaning that this is a medicine that actually kills the virus. So it's not something that is going to prevent you from getting it, but if you get it, this particular medicine will kill the virus. And so they have contracted with more than a few governments around the world to supply this medicine. They said something like 6.4 million doses have been basically given out to all these different countries, and they have on balance something like 10 million more that they're contracting for. The funny thing though that happened in the call, and analysts asked the question. So now that we're kind of coming out of COVID, and you've contracted to deliver these medicines, is there something in the contract with these governments that says that if they don't use the medicine, they'll be able to sell them back to you? And it was so interesting because the CFO completely skipped the question. I mean, she did the classic, runaround where she talked about their confidence in the medicine. They talked about how they think that it is something that is needed in the market, and something that is necessary to have. But she never answered the question about anything about countries being able to sell the medicine back to Merck if in fact they don't use it. And that is something that I think will show up in the numbers. I don't expect that to be a news headline at all if that were to happen. But what happens is when you contract with the government to sell these medicines, that money goes to your revenue, right? Because you're recognizing that we have a contract. Even though you have not received cash for the medicines, when you have a signed contract, that is revenue. However, what happens when the country says, "Oh, well, guess what? We only use 100,000 of the million pills you sold us. So, here's all your pills back." And so now Merck is going to have to purchase those pills, or they're going to have to maybe amend their financials to show that, well, we didn't really make as much money as we thought we were going to make. So that is something very interesting. We'll kind of see how that goes. I'm really keen on monitoring that. Um, Other than that, I mean, I do think that it's a good medicine. Um, I think that it will be around for at least a while, right? But I think that, with all of the hoopla around, COVID medications in the past year, it's very possible there are some countries out there that were overzealous in purchasing these pills, and they may actually want to sell some back if, in fact, it is in the contract for them to do that. Merck was not going to comment at all on whether or not that was something in the contract.